everybody. Welcome to episode 33 of the Hey Everybody podcast. This is a thing we do every week for 33 weeks. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad to be here with you. I've been having some conversations this week with my wife about crowdfunding and like Kickstarter and Patreon and that kind of thing. And because we've been observing, as the world changes and the way people make things changes, you see more and more of that. And I have complicated feelings about it. I've never done anything like that, but I have contributed to a couple. But then there's some, that I take issue with. But thinking more and more about it, and I was sort of reading a thing this week where the writer was saying that to give generously is to be open to receiving generously, because to give generously, and I'm sort of adding to this now, but to give generously is sort of a statement that you think the world should work this way. You think people that have should give, people that can should do. And the way you see the world has to apply to yourself as well. So to give generously is to require the giver to be open to receiving generously. And all that to say, to people supporting the podcast and my music and stuff, I really appreciate it. It has kept me from having to even seriously consider like the other routes, or it's just kept me from having to obsess about money. I don't like doing that. It's hard to make things that I'm proud of when I'm thinking about money and that kind of thing. And when people support the podcast and buy my music and that kind of thing, it frees me up to just keep making things and putting them out. And that's the world I want to live in, where I make stuff, I put it out, and hopefully enough people like it and value it that it just kind of works out. And in the meantime, I get to play charity shows and put out a free podcast and that kind of thing. So if you are watching this, thank you. If you listen to my music, thank you. If you share either or both of those things, thank you. And if you've ever contributed, thank you. It means a lot. So yeah, there's that. I'm in a bit of a funk today. Just nothing really bad, just a bit of a funk. And I don't want to be in a funk. So I thought I would open the podcast with a story, because that's one of the things we do here. It's hard to explain what this is. People ask, like, oh, what's your podcast about? And I don't know. I think, I don't know. Sometimes I say it's just about songs and stories, and sometimes I say it's about philosophy, which I don't think is really accurate. Sometimes I say it's about sort of thinking about how we think and just being more intentional with ourselves and our brains and our lives and our time. But I don't know. I'm just glad some people enjoy it, because I enjoy it too. Here's my funny story. I'm not Catholic. I have never been Catholic, and I was not raised around the Catholic tradition. And as a result, this really funny thing happened to me once that I think about this time of year every year, because it is related to Ash Wednesday, which I believe was last week. So I'm working at a gas station. I'm 20 years old, and I work at a gas station because then and now, that's what I'm qualified to do. I can do what I'm doing right now, and hopefully people will pay for it. Or I can work at a gas station. And, I could take some pride in that too. Get those floors real clean. So I'm working at a gas station, 20 years old, And what I don't know at the time is anything about Ash Wednesday. Now, I don't know how I made it to 20 living in Wisconsin as long as I had at that point, and had not ever encountered Ash Wednesday. It might speak to where my head was at the time. Like, Ash Wednesday wasn't related to guitars and punk rock, so it just went right by me. But I'm working at this gas station, and this guy comes in, and he's got a little bit of schmutz on his forehead there. And I lean in and I say, "Hey man, you got something on your face." And he just kind of looks at me and leaves. And in my head I'm like, "Well, excuse me, buddy. I'm looking out. I'm thinking you might run into a lady later, and you'll be embarrassed. You have some schmutz on your face. And why didn't that cool guy at the gas station give me the heads up?" But I let it go. A few minutes later, another guy comes in. And I say, "Hey man, you got a little something on your forehead there." And again, I get nothing. And this continues to happen. And like an idiot, I don't at any point think maybe the malfunctioning variable in this equation is old biscuits behind the counter. I'm just going, man, there's a lot of rude people in the world. You know, I'm thinking, you're at a gas station, you're pumping gas, you're wiping the brow, you're getting a little schmutz, and I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to do you a solid, because we're in a community, man. So the next day, Thursday, I come into work, and my boss goes, "Well, we're going to have to let you go." And I said, "Why?" And always say why, because they don't necessarily know everything you've done wrong. So just always go, "Why?" And she goes, "Because you can't make fun of Catholic people all day." And I said, "What do you mean?" And it took so much doing to convince just my boss that a 20-year-old man in small town Wisconsin had never heard of Ash Wednesday. If you're in the same boat, Ash Wednesday is part of a religious ceremony or tradition where on that Wednesday they put a little cross on your forehead with ashes. And admittedly, still to this day, that's all I know about it. I think it's the beginning of Lent. But I accidentally spent a whole evening at a gas station mocking Catholic people, and then almost got fired for it. But then I started thinking, how did not one of these people just go like, "Oh, it's Ash Wednesday, dude"? Like, clearly I wasn't celebrating it because I didn't have the ash, and not a single person. And this is a true story. It might have been 6 people that I went, "Hey man, we got a bathroom. Head in there, give it a little, you gotta check it. You gotta keep yourself looking good." And now I'm smiling and feeling good. You know, they say if you just picture yourself smiling, it'll cheer you up. Like, you don't even have to smile. And there's 2 ways of looking at that. One is that your brain is an amazing, powerful thing. That just having a thought can affect your mood and your physicality. And the other is the exact opposite, that your brain is so stupid that it doesn't know if you're smiling or thinking about smiling. Let's just send out the endorphins just to be safe. And a lot of people might think having a stupid brain is a negative, but I see it as a positive, because if my brain is so stupid that I can convince it that I'm happy just by thinking about smiling, maybe my brain shouldn't be in charge. Maybe if I start to have a thought or a feeling, I can evaluate that thought or feeling and make decisions about it instead of just going, "Well, my brain said this." Well, your brain's dumb, dude. Your brain sees a McRib and thinks that looks good. It's not good. You know it's not good. But your stupid brain, you know? Think about how many people have had a terrible experience at a KFC and are gonna eat there again this week. Also, thanks again to everyone who supports the podcast, because we're never going to get sponsors. Because certainly not KFC. We went sledding yesterday, and it was a blast. I physically went sledding. Top of the hill, rode all the way down to the bottom. It was really fun, super fast, and it's fun to be 37 and go sledding. And to think, I don't go sledding. I'm 37. I'm an adult man. I'm not going sledding. I'm taking my son sledding. But then I watched him do it a bunch, and then my wife did it a couple times, and I just thought, man, the hell with it. That looks fun. I'm going to have some fun. And I went sledding, and it was a blast. And we're going to go again. And I'm going to go again. And it was fun. And it was a great exercise in going, there's who I think I am, and there's who people think I am, and there's who we all think I should be. And then there's just this feeling of like, I could just go sledding. I could have a ton of fun flying down a hill on a giant tube that looks like Homer Simpson's donut. And that's what I did. And it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was certainly more fun than my Saturday, because a friend of mine said something on his personal social media that I deemed inoffensive. And then he got in trouble at work for it, to the point that they were talking about maybe letting him go. And this friend of mine is a quasi-public figure, and I won't go that deep into it because what I'm talking about isn't really about that. But what happened was, I was looking at this situation and I thought, okay, variable 1, I know and like this guy. Okay. Variable 2, the thing that he did I don't think is a bad thing to do. So I voiced that publicly on my social media. I said, I support my buddy. And I got all this heat from people that politicized it and said stuff about cancel culture and stuff about the left and stuff about the right and stuff about liberals and conservatives. And I'm just going, what did you guys just read? Because that's not what I wrote. But the way I kept my cool is, lately I've been working on this thing where if I see something out in the world that bothers me, I try to identify a version of that thing within myself. Whether it's anger or jealousy or laziness or insecurity. And once I identify it in myself, I immediately sort of switch over to empathy, not sympathy, not even compassion, just empathy. I understand where you're coming from because I have come from there before myself. And then a profound either disinterest or comfort with the knowledge that I'm not going to change you, I don't think, because I haven't even yet been able to totally stamp this thing out in myself. And then once I started doing that, this interesting thing that I hadn't intended started happening, where when people do things to me, I sort of assume that it's projecting. These people that came at me with all this political stuff, what they're saying is, look at how I see the world. Everything's political. Everything's a side. Everything is an attack or a defense. And then I can go like, oh, I don't see it that way. And I wasn't doing that. I see now that that's how you see it. And right there is the beginning of a problem in communication. But rather than engage with you in that, I might do something different. And that's where I had this really interesting sort of epiphany with social media, because I realized, and I wrote this down, I just write things down from time to time. I wrote down this whole little thing about when we repeat an action over and over and over again, we start to think that the action makes sense because we're repeating it. And some part of our brain goes, if this didn't make any sense, I wouldn't keep doing it. But the reality is habits form and comfort zones and ruts form. And the more I realize that stuff doesn't make sense, even things that I do repeatedly, like engage people on social media or just being on social media, or even some thought processes that I have, you know, some feelings or ideas that I might have don't make sense. The political system in this country does not make sense. We just keep doing it. And all at once I sort of realized that with this specific interaction I was having with the world via social media. I said a thing that was very clear and simple, and the whole world repackaged it in their own way. It was negative, and then they shoved it back at me and wanted to discuss. And what I realized is when you realize that a thing you're repeating doesn't make sense, you don't even necessarily have to stop doing it. It can just change the way you interact with the thing. Like, there were a few people that said things to me that I responded to because I thought, well, this is worth talking about and clarifying and that kind of thing. And then there were some people that said stuff that I just went, that's not the conversation I'm having, man. And I'm just not going to respond to that. And I don't know if that's the right move or the wrong move, but it felt empowering to go, if this doesn't make sense, I don't need to engage it. If I don't think I can be effective here, if I don't think we're starting in the right place, I don't need to engage it. And it felt very freeing to let people try to put me somewhere that I wasn't and try to paint me a color that I am not. And to not protest, just go like, that's the color you paint everything, man. That's not the color I am. But I don't need to fight against that because I know that's not the color I am. That's just you running around painting everything the same color because that's the color you are. And I still think there's the possibility for real conversations and change to happen, because even in doing that, I'm proving myself to be kind of a safe space in the world where you can come and you can be wrong and you can even offend me, and I'll decide not to be offended about it. And eventually, maybe watch my podcast and go, why is this cool dude such a cool dude? Maybe it's because he read the first 3 pages of 18 different philosophy books and has fashioned himself some kind of bearded, I don't even know what. To quote the man, Todd Snider, he said at the beginning of his show, and I imagine he says it a lot, but I saw a video of him saying, I did not come here to change your mind about anything. I came here to ease my own mind about everything. And that is a powerful way to live your life. And it's a hard way to live your life because I want to defend myself. I want to stick my finger in people's chests and go, no, you are wrong, man. That's not even what I said. Maybe before you learn how to type comments, you should learn how to read posts, my man. But there's really, at the time it didn't feel like there was any point to that. Now, conversely, there have been times where I have engaged people knowing that the outcome would not be good. But in those moments, it felt like the thing to do. So like everything else, I think it's about balance and about kind of following your gut. I asked my son to wipe off the table yesterday. And he said, is it okay if I say I don't want to do it? And I say, sure, but let's do something first. And he said, okay. And I said, dial in to the inner part of you that makes you you, the gut, the soul, the thing that makes you you, your little man inside. How does that part of you feel when your dad asks you to clear the table and you go, I don't want to? Versus, how does that part of you feel when your dad says, hey, can you wipe off the table? And you say, yeah, for sure. And you just wipe off the table. And he said, okay. And he went and wiped off the table. But it's a good point. I mean, after years of evolution, one of the unfortunate ways we're evolving is that we don't trust that anymore. That gut of like, because it'll look like hypocrisy sometimes. It'll look like, well, yesterday you did this in this situation, and then today, when presented with a very similar situation, you did the other thing. But you're not a politician. You're not being held to account for your record. You can just go like, I'm just doing what feels right, you know? But you have to be honest with yourself about what feels right. And you have to take the second it takes to tune in and ask what feels right. Like today, I was in a mood, I was in a funk, and I dialed into like the truth and the certainty that like, I don't want to be in a funk. And that's new. A younger Christopher identified with the funk, identified as the funk, and maybe even thought like, well, that's what makes it interesting. My songs are good because they're sad, and they're sad because they're real, man. And now I just go like, that doesn't seem like a fun way to spend the day. Just sat by a candle, staring out the window, writing shitty poetry. I'd rather drink some coffee and do a podcast and have some fun. I walked out of the living room this morning, and I said to my son, I said, you know what makes me mad? And he just goes, well, that's negative, but okay. And I thought like, that's true. But then I taught him what commiserating was, and it turned out the thing I was gonna say made me mad also makes him mad, and we had a nice little chat about it. Let's play a song. This song is called The River. It's about being tired, like deeply tired in your bones, and it's about wanting to feel refreshed deep down in your bones. And it's one of these where like this verse is about this, and this verse is about that, and this. The first verse is sometimes I feel tired because I want my life to matter. I want to make a big, bold statement. I want it to be known that I was here once I'm gone. And that's hard to do and almost impossible. So I'm tired. And the second verse is, politics make me tired, man. Politicians make me tired. Feeling like I can kind of clearly see the truth and that I'm in the minority in doing so makes me tired. And then the third verse is just the realization that like maybe rest doesn't have to be this big epic journey. Like I wander off into the woods and I'm not seen for a year and I come back with a big bushy beard and I've written a memoir. Maybe it's just you can make the decision to put the day down at the end of the day and get some sleep. So that's what the song's about. And it's called The River, and it goes like this. My throat feels a little dry today, so bear with me. It's what you guys are good at. Here we go. I won't live my life like an open wound. I won't be a song in an empty room. I won't be a song in an empty room. Well, these politicians, they'll burn us all. I guess standing on our shoulders got 'em feeling pretty tall. Standing on our shoulders got 'em feeling pretty tall. Take me down to the river while the river is still there. Just take me down to the river and wash these days off of me. Just leave me there. Hang your hat whenever you had. Don't bring you any trouble when you come into bed. Don't bring any troubles when you come into bed. So take me down to the river while the river is still there. Just take me down to the river and wash these days off of me. Just take me down to the river while the river is still there. Just take me down to the river and wash these days off of me. Just leave me there. All right. That felt good. Thank you. Do some recommendations, get you out of here. Here we go. This record is called The No Hit Wonder by a man named Corey Brannon. Corey Brannon is just a great songwriter and a great guitar player and a great singer. And I love this record. I don't know if it's my favorite record by him. I think maybe my favorite would be a record he did called Mutt. And I have that one as well. But this record feels like the most self-contained. One of the things I love about him, and one of the things people love about him, is that he genre hops quite a little bit. He'll do folk stuff and country stuff and blues stuff and then rock and roll stuff and then like almost Tom Waitsian kind of weird jazzy stuff. And it's all wonderful, and I recommend all of it. But this one, I feel like is the closest he's come to just like, this is a country record, here you go. And if I were going to try to get someone into Corey Brannon, that's a nice way to start. It's a gentle entrance into the world of Corey Brannon. Check out All the Rivers in Colorado. It's a great song. Also, I got to play with him once, and we were talking afterwards about our kids, and I said, yeah, my son was real disappointed that he couldn't be here because he likes your music a lot. So Corey grabbed this record and he wrote, Oliver, let's hang someday, Corey Brannon. So that's pretty neat, and Ollie gets a kick out of it. Up next, this is Gram Parsons. This is his self-titled record, or it's called GP. It depends, whatever. Gram Parsons is a legend, and in his 26, 27 years, he made no less than, let's call it 5 legendary, crucial, impactful, influential records. And this is one of them. The reason I picked this one, even though I've been listening to the Flying Burrito Brothers all morning, which is one of his bands, is because this feels like the most purely just Gram Parsons. He also made Sweetheart of the Rodeo with the Byrds, which is an amazing record, but there's a lot of cooks in that particular kitchen, and this one just feels like a lot of Gram Parsons. And you get a whole bunch of Emmylou Harris on this record as well. So check out the new Soft Shoe by Gram Parsons, and you'll dig it. And if you're going down a Gram Parsons rabbit hole, which I recommend you do, I got into him very late, just a few years ago. I was at a friend's house. He was listening to the Flying Burrito Brothers. I said, hey, what's this? And he said, you don't know the Flying Burrito Brothers? And I said, no. He goes, it's Gram Parsons. I go, I don't know who that is either. And then he told me all about it. And I've since, I don't have all of it yet, but I think I've purchased 6 or 7 Gram Parsons records. And I also purchased this movie. This movie's called Grand Theft Parsons, starring Johnny Knoxville, and it is weird. The weirdest thing about it is the truest thing about it, which is it's the story of Gram Parsons' road manager, Phil Kaufman. And Gram Parsons and Phil Kaufman had a deal that if one of them died, the other one would take the body out to Joshua Tree in the desert and burn it and set the soul free. And wouldn't you know, Gram Parsons died and Phil Kaufman held up his end of the deal. He went and stole the body. He drove it out to the desert in the coffin, and he lit the whole job on fire. And later, when he went to court for this, the judge decided that a dead body had no intrinsic value, so there was no real crime committed there, and instead just fined him and his buddy $750 for stealing and destroying the coffin. And that is maybe my favorite story in rock and roll because it sounds so fake, but it's true. And this movie's okay. You know, it's like a nice middle of the road. If you have 90 minutes to kill, pop this movie on. There are definitely some laugh out loud moments. And like I said, the great thing about this movie, apart from the soundtrack, ooh buddy, is also it says based on a true story. And the one part of it that you think is definitely made up is the one true part of it, which is that Phil Kaufman actually did this. And Phil Kaufman is in this movie for 2 seconds at the end there. So, we did it. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everything's going well. There's so much more we could talk about. We'll talk about it next week. But in the meantime, keep doing what you do. Keep your chin up. If you're enjoying the podcast, tell people about it. If you support the podcast, thank you very much. I'm still getting used to the things that I make not being physical products, so there not being anything to sell. But it seems like together we're kind of finding our feet in all this. And thank you guys for the support. And if you want to hear some music, it's everywhere. Go to ChristopherGold.com. Find me on Spotify. I got all kinds of music. I got rock and roll music. I got folk music. I got shuffly country music. I got instrumental music. What do you need? You know, I'm not rapping, thank God. That's my favor to you. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a ton. Be good. See you soon.